Mm. Okay. Yeah, it's already recorded in record. Okay. So those of you who are missing out, the good thing about classes like this is the lecturers can, like online classes, the lecturer can record the lecture. But on physical classes, normally lecturers will not record the classes at all. Okay. So if you miss the class, you miss the class. It's only fair because MQA required 40% of physical classes. So if we still give you a physical class and because you don't attend class and then we record the class, it's not fair for people who are actually making a point to come and attend the classes. Okay, so as much as possible, do try to attend all the physical classes. Yeah, right. So I will share my screen again, and this time there should be some notes coming up. Okay. All right. Can you see the notes is on what is scope? Okay. All right. Because I have classes after I talk until the end of the classes that I didn't put up the notes at all. I mean, I thought that I put up the notes, and then by the end of the 2 hours, 1.5 hours, the student said, Dr. Ting, you have notes, ka? I'm like, yeah, I'm talking on my notes. He said, no, I didn't see any notes at all. Oh dear. So yeah, I mean, like, sometimes it happens, you see, I mean, I get too carried away on my own computer talking to myself, and then so happy here talking, and then people are like, oh, listening, eh? How come no notes? Some students, they are also a bit slow, huh? When they don't see the notes, they don't say anything. So yeah, so right. So I do have notes. And basically scope management, we have 3 sets of notes. 3 sets, set 1, 2, and 3. So what we're going to be covering today is 1.5 set of the notes. And the other 1.5 set will be by pre-recorded lecture. And there will be also additional recordings, about 60 minutes of recordings on value engineering and also life cycle costing, which I believe for those of you who are working, especially from the government sector, you will be very keen to know about this as well. So what is value engineering and how is that related to scope management? Because earlier stages when we are going through our scope, we also need to look into optimization of our scope, you see. We want it to be of a good value. In today's world, it's not about how much money you have. A lot of clients, they do have the money, but they're not looking for, oh, I have got 100 million, and I want to build a facilities that is 100 million. Can you deliver to me what is 100 million? You see, I mean, it's not like that anymore. A lot of clients are getting a lot smarter. They want value. They want value in their final product. They want that their 100 million can do 120 million if possible, or can have a lot of room for future extension or future improvement or for future extension or for future usage as well. So there many clients are looking for that, not just because if I have 100 million, any engineer now, any civil engineer, that owns a consultancy firm can deliver that 100 million worth of job, you see. If they can't, they can always partner with other people, other consultancy from overseas or from West Malaysia or from Sabah to do it, you see. So it's not the engineer's competitive edge anymore to be able to deliver what the client wants. You have to be able to deliver a lot more or give client a lot more options or give client a lot more possibility or a lot more value to their project. that's where I think at earlier stages of scope management, we also mentioned about value engineering. And if we do value engineering towards the end, meaning that when you're already in construction and then you get the contractor to work out on value engineering or to improve the design, it's a bit too late. Yeah, I mean, like, it's, like a lot of things are already fixed. If you want to change something, it will not achieve the same kind of effect it will if you have already done a lot earlier, meaning during the planning stage or during the during the conceptual design stage or during the project development stage. So, and I think that is very important that we embark onto value engineering at earlier stages of the project instead of doing design, for example. When you're doing design, when you ask the consultant to do value engineering, I mean, like, why in the right mind would any consultant do value engineering, correct or not? I mean, why would they want to embark onto value engineering? Because as a consultant, my fees is based on the final construction cost. So if I have the final construction cost is 100 million, my fees is 5%, I'm getting 5% out of the 100 million. So if you want me as a designer to sit down and do value engineering during my design, I mean, professionally, you're supposed to do that. Professionally, you're supposed to give client background things. Professionally, you're supposed to bring other consultants based on your skills on optimization. Well, yeah, they're having to say that, but the mentality is if everybody don't do it, so why should I be the one doing it, So instead of 100 million, in the end, I save my client 10 million. But I save my client 10 million, I don't get that 10 million. I mean, what about my own consultation fees? That 5% out of 10 million is still a lot of money as well, So it becomes a very unattractive thing for consultant engineers to embark onto value engineering unless professionally is being called for, meaning that when client or JKR or client like some or federal government or something like that, they actually call for all consultants to not only design but also to work on value as part of the job or as part of the requirement, then people would do it, you see. Other than that, it's very difficult for you want the consultant to initiate it yourself. So it's better if you do it. Client side have to initiate it. The client side have to have people who can actually do value engineering or initiate value engineering and work together with the knowledge to work together with the consultant and the contractor at different stages to enhance the work or to better the work. Okay, so that would be the best stage, earlier stages to do value engineering. Then, of course, we will also mention about LCC. LCC is life cycle. And life cycle, I think main thing is as engineers, a lot of time when we do design, when we do construction, when we do planning, we fail to look at the cost of maintenance and the cost of operation. And all of us are very concerned about the initial scope of work, the initial cost of the work, but we are not. We forget about that. Facilities need to be used for the next 20, 30, 50, 100 years. And if the operation cost is very high, our client will not be able to have much savings, even though your initial construction capital cost is very low. Okay, so there is some sort of studies that is also pretty much in the market at the moment. Out there, people are like talking about the sort of things as young consultant, as new consultant. You don't have to open a consultancy firm that is design only, but if you can find a niche area, such as LCC and value engineering, you may be able to operate a very profitable consultancy firm as well, instead of trying to fight prices, go on a price war with the rest of the other consultants. Okay, right. So That is the purpose of why we are introducing LCC and also value engineering into scope management. Okay, so what exactly is scope management? Okay, scope. What is exactly scope? Okay, scope of a project. Okay, I think the main thing here that I need you all to be very aware of, because when we talk about scope, we like to talk about scope of work. Scope of work. You know, or what is the scope of work here? Or what is the scope of the contract here? You see, so we pretty much focus almost straight away, immediately thinking about um, things like, you know, the actual physical work, the actual processes in making things happen, such as drainage work, structural work, piling work, foundation work, earthwork, you know. Yeah, it's fine, you know, it is that is a practical side of things. But scope itself is actually everything. It's about the end product. What are we actually building in the first place? What is the final end product? What is the final outcome? And if it's a school building, are we going to build a school? Are we going to build a bridge? Are we going to build submarine pipes? Are we going to build, you know, a new mall? Are we going to build 20, 50 stories of high rises? So what is the final product? Okay. So when we talk about scope, it's about first and foremost this thing, the final outcome, the final scope. And if we don't really see that yet, then you really need to very carefully scrutinize your project environment first before you decide what is the deliverables that you are constructing or designing or constructing. And then it's only after that, think about the product. From the product itself, we think about the components of the product. Okay. Many of us jump very soon, very fast into the scope of work, and some of us jump very fast into the components of the project. So let's say if I am building a bridge, you know, so instead of wondering why you are building a bridge, what makes us want to build a bridge? We started to think about, oh, I'm going to build a 2-lane bridge. It's going to carry traffic from this side to the other side. Oh yeah, I think it's enough for now. You know, and then the bridge will be at which location? And then the bridge will be on the upstream, downstream, or whichever, you know, channel or location, and it's going to be so wide, so big, so long. You know, and then we're going to do it with cable stay. We're going to do it with we're going to do it with box girdle. You know, so you're very fast going into that sort of details. You see, so in the end, what's happening here? What's happening here is you may not be actually delivering exactly what the public wants, especially with infrastructure projects. Or you may be actually over designing in some cases, and in many cases, we do not really fulfill exactly what the end users actually require. You see, so I think that is a loophole, or the not loophole lah. That is like the lobang, you know, that we have to try to avoid as engineers, especially those of you who are working for client agency, such as KKR, such as, you know, like, well, I think the other day, Rafael is saying you're working for LCDA or something like that. So or some places like that. Okay, so you see, these places, these are the initiator of the project. Why you want to build 100 houses? Why you want to build semi-Ds? Why you want to build terrace houses, double story, single story, this sort of orientation, this sort of pricing range and all that. So without going through a proper thought process of defining our scope, starting from the product itself, to the components of the product, to the subcomponents of the product, and then all the works that are required to deliver those subcomponents. Basically, we are being too rushed, and it's almost like going shopping without thinking about what you really want. Okay, so in the end, you pay a lot of money, get a lot of things, but none of them actually fit you very well. You know, those of you who have just gone through Chinese New Year shopping, did you actually buy like 3 pairs of shoes, and in the end, oh, this pair is not very nice. This pair, my feet is very hurting. That pair is not, the color not exactly what I want. And then in the end, you leave it in your closet and don't touch it. And then 2 years later, it rots up, and then you throw it into the bin. Okay, simple analogy. And buying shoes is maybe talking about 100 ringgit, 50 ringgit, 150, or if you buy branded shoes, it's a few thousand ringgit. Well, that comparatively, that's not a lot of money, you know. When we talk about a project, also millions, 100 million, 200 million. Now you look at people building the ART. Wow, Bukat Mulut also 90 million. Small package 90 million, 120, 110 million. You know, it's about a lot of 0, 0, 0, 0 at the back there. And you cannot afford to make mistakes. You cannot afford to say that, not really well done, not exactly what we need, I use first lah. After we use for a few years, then later on we change lah. Wow, so much money. It's all taxpayer money, you know. All taxpayer money. So we cannot afford to say that, you know. So it's very important that we go through our, first and foremost, our deliverables very carefully. Something that I always want to emphasize on, especially for engineers who are actually practicing, you see, like especially on the client end. Many of us, we worry about the manpower, we worry about the funding, we worry about the delays, you know. But usually what happens is a lot of problems actually crop up later on. Is because in the first place, you did not define your scope sufficiently. And you do not actually confirm on the exact thing that is needed. You know, what is needed. If you have something, if you build something that you really need, you may really use it for 50 years, 60 years, 100 years, and then you don't even need to talk about value engineering anymore. This is like serving the public. The value is there without even studying value engineering. No need to study value engineering. You know, a product, 100 million, you're going to use it for the next 50 years. It's going to serve the people of Sarawak in the next 50 years, you know, and then without any issues, without any failures, without any, I wouldn't say without any failures, but without any major failures or major problems, you know, that itself is already high value. So you don't need to go through that process if you have already done it very carefully in the first place, you see. So for Project Management Institute, it is suggested that we actually follow the scope planning, scope definition, create WBS, scope verification, and scope control. This is actually a very, you know, like very theoretical sort of things. So in the first place, scope, like I say, is not only about the work that contributes to the final product. You need to know what the final product that you need to build. Okay, and then after that, work out on the components. What are the components of that product? And then move on to product breakdown. What are the subcomponents? And then after the subcomponents, we look at the processes, works, temporary works, and the processes that needs to, or work processes that needs to contribute to the subcomponents. And then we go back up and deliver our final product. So scope is about the product, it's about the works that goes into the product. in the end, it's about delivering the final product to the consumers, to the end users, not only to the client, but to the end users. You build houses, yes, we know the developer is LCDA, we know the developer is Sapa, Borneo Enterprise or whatever. It doesn't matter. In the end, who are using your final product? That is something that we have to look very closely into, because the success of your work not only dependent on whether the client is happy with the deliverables, it is about how useful, how minimum maintenance your product is, how well it performs, and how well it looks in some cases, and how well it is operating, and then how well it is actually fulfilling the needs of the public and all the demands of the demands of the market, for example. So I think the initial part that the initial work that we need to work on is actually quite a lot. Okay, many of us will kind of skip all this in the first place. Like they'll find it like, oh, yeah, I know. We just have to do some feasibility studies, and then we also need to do some initial study, preliminary investigation. We jump into things like that, but in the end, what are you building? Do you figure what you're actually building, and how that particular things that you are constructing will fulfill the end user's needs and demands? Okay, so in the first place, all scope will be given birth because of some ideas, needs, or demand. Okay, so there may be market demand, there may be ideas, some brilliant ideas that come from some people. The world is full of creative idea. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many interesting products in our life. For example, if no one has ideas, then there won't be any smartphone ever. If no one has ideas, then there won't be any cars that don't need drivers now. And then I've seen some courier service logistic company, they use this car, the tiny little truck that nobody drives. Like very creative ideas. So it's all business opportunities, ideas, and all that creates us as engineers, our work. Mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, civil engineers. Our opportunity lies in all sorts of ideas that some people actually come up with. So where does all the ideas come from? Like I say, it can be from customers' feedback, it can be from some scientific pattern, it can be from some insights. Some people have some very good insights to certain things. And then it can be obvious market demand, opportunities. Construction has always been a market demand. Build houses, build apartments, these are all market demand. Okay, and then you may have some individual internal sources like your own ambition, your own aspiration, building your new houses. Maybe some of you are doing research, and then in the end, your research can be made into a product, for example. So these are all some internal sources. So understanding where your idea come from, where is the sources of your idea come from, is very important, because then you can fully understand your clients' attitude, their character, their mind, and it's easier for you to define what the product would be like if you can actually understand the sources of the demand, and also whether it's internal or external sources. Okay, right. How are you guys? Are you still alive so far?
Yes, still, Doctor.
Yeah, and anything you want to talk about? anytime, because like I say, you all are mature students who are actually also engineers. If you disagree with what I say, or if you feel like there's something you want to add on, you can, please, we can share some information. Many of our products obviously are from public needs, especially infrastructure projects, such as bridges, jetties, wharves, ART, the art systems now. Yeah, it's from environmental issues, it's from like how we cannot keep on having traffic jam, and too much of carbon footprints, and therefore we need public transport. So we need to understand the sources of our the idea for the product. Where does it come from? Okay, it's very dangerous if it's just from a group of people sometimes. So we have to be very careful when you it's some sort of certain ideas or certain insights or whims or wheels, of certain people. Then if it's that sort of things, then as engineers we have to be very careful with our client group so they may not be very serious about it, and they may not be able to follow through with it. Of course, that will have an impact on our job as well later on. Right, so once we've already defined the sources of our ideas, the needs and demands, there's two things that we can do to study to study what we call the issue. To study the final product. Okay, the first method is what I call issue analysis and management. So this particular method requires you to use back the format that I showed you last week during the physical class about the circle thing. See, the circle thing, the internal circle, like where you have your project in the center, okay, and then the first layer are issues that will actually influence your project. For example, the organization that your clients, the organization that are building this or constructing this particular project, or the owner of the project, and their organization, their mentality, their needs, their demands, their way of doing business, their principles, their characters, and all that. And also some very local, very straightforward local factors, such as ground conditions, such as geographical factors, river conditions. These are very direct things that can affect the final product itself. So when you do issue analysis, you need to break up the issues into the circles or the squares, circles or squares or whatever, ovals, you have it, it doesn't matter. So then you also have the next layer, whereby these are maybe more of a local factor, such as local authority, or the external factor can be availability of technology, environmental law, occupational health and safety law, social economics, and all that. So social impact, economics impact, and all that. So the key with issue analysis is when you break things up into circles like this, you fill up these things. It's that you can brainstorm and you can fill up these things. Okay, and then the first thing is you need to think about is how the issues actually influence or affect your project. Those things directly very near your project, obviously it will be the most heavier lines included, because we want to show that it has a very strong impact onto the project. Okay, so you think about arrow going in. Okay, So when you list down or when you brainstorm all sorts of external, internal issues that comes from the organization or comes from your local areas or more of a global kind of issues, so you fill it up, you see how strongly it affects your project. If you use what we call a thick line, it will mean that it has a very strong influence on the project. So that means later on when you're doing a design, when you're doing a construction, you have to really take into account of all these factors that has a very strong arrow going into your project. Then the medium or the thin line are the one that has some medium link, meaning that it will affect the project, but it is not that strongly. In some cases, it may or it may not. Okay, and then of course a very thin line is in some ways it will be affecting the project, but the impact is not very strong. Okay, so we think about all the lines going in, like affecting your project. Then we will also need to think about how your project will also affect some of these issues. So there will be lines coming up from your project as well. And of course, some of these issues are actually interrelated, especially if you have some interrelated issue. It means that like maybe it's a social factor, it does not directly, it does not have a very strong impact onto the project, but it has a very strong impact onto the business around that project. And then that business has a very strong impact onto the project. So you also need to show the link between the issues as well. So this is a very, what I call very logical, very systematic. We call it system thinking. So I think last week we did show, let me open up the last week's one. Yeah, this one. I think last week I showed this particular to your group, these particular slides to your group. So all these influenceable, appreciable issues, and then some of these issues in some project it may be in the first circle. Some of it is in some project it may be in the external circle. So it depends on your project. So some ideas about the different layers of issues that can actually influence your project. It can be influenced or it can control or it can be really affecting as well. And then some of these issues will be affected by the project as well. For example, if it's a huge project such as the ART, you may actually affect the Sarawak, on the national level, which is somewhere up here, you see. Maybe it will affect the travel route. It will affect the business. It may affect the work attitude. It may affect the business's work hours, for example. It may also affect the lending and borrowing system. Some projects are so huge, it can actually affect a country's economy as well. So we have to be very careful with that. And some can be so big, the project, that it can actually affect the weather condition, the land conditions, the soil conditions as well. So, or affect this power supply, the water supplies and all that. So these are an environment scan. Also, this environment scan, you either use issue analysis, okay, like I say, this method of issue analysis to actually study, okay. So you pick up all the issues, okay, that is available. So what we call issue identification, and then you pick it up and then you throw it into your three circles diagram or your system diagram, okay. System diagram, we sometimes call this a system diagram because it's a systematic way. It's like the higher bird eye view about your project. is the environment scan. So all these issues you have to know where it comes from, and then how it will contribute to the project, the design, or the treatment, or the construction of the project. And some of these issues can be, like I say, very fashionable issues, some things that is not here 20 years ago, is definitely not here, but now it's a very important issues, such as environment, power, carbon, carbon footprint generations, and all that. These are some of the very fashionable issues, very hot issues that you cannot ignore, especially with new projects as well. Legal issues, social economics, and all that. So yeah, so you define, where all these issues are from, whether it's a very direct one, whether it's an indirect one, or whether it's you can formally find it, or whether it's through your experience, whether it's actually through your understanding of the area that you're working in, and all that. For international counterparts, these are something that they have to do because they don't understand your area. So for example, us that work in Sarawak for the last 20, 30 years, we understand how the Sarawak government works. We understand how the Sarawak systems are like, and our ordinances and all that. So it's actually a lot easier for us to identify a lot of these issues. But it's very different when when you're coming from, say, West Malaysia, or whether you're working in West Malaysia, or whether you're working in Sabah or something like that, or whether you are international, working for international company like a Chinese company from China, or a Japanese company from Japan, and sometimes you may work for like international company like Vietnamese or Thai or whatever. So you do have different sets of issues that you need to include if you are actually not familiar with the areas, or you're not familiar with the location of the project, or you're not familiar with the law or government, or or the culture of the people as well from that project. So this can be issues that is related to the project. Okay, so after you've identified the issues, of course, some of the issues is important, some of the issues are not so important, so you need to filtrate them. And the way that I filter them, like I said, I will draw lines. A very thick line means that you have to look out for that. And then if those that are thin lines or dash lines, these are the ones that are not so important, and maybe I can ignore them first at the moment. So and look through those very important issues first that affect my project, and that my project will affect as well. Okay. So then after that, you fully list down all the issues that is important, okay, and then or prioritize those issues. You can categorize them into 3 categories, and then that's whereby you really think about, now if I'm going to build a bridge, okay, it's really a bridge of idea, or should I just build jetty wharfs for now? And then it's all about transportation. It's all about fulfilling the needs of people from the other side, transporting people or goods or from businesses from one side to the other side. It's reach a really final idea that you should go for. So then after understanding all these sort of issues, then you can actually make some confirmation on that. Okay. So the other method is what we call an environmental impact assessments. Many of you actually, when you talk about EIA, you think about NREB, you think about, you think about environmental issues, and I feel like that is so wrong, because environmental impact assessments is not only about project environmental ecological issues. It's not about flora, fauna being dead, pollution, water pollutions, ground pollution, soil erosions. Yes, that is part of EIA. And in Sarawak, basically the NREB are the one looking after that. And for project of certain size, you need to prepare EIA. And of course, every 3 months or every 6 months, you need to do EMP, environmental management, environmental monitoring plan, and also the actual submission of the documents as well. So instead of fulfilling the purpose of understanding the project environment, doing the project scan, EIA has become so much like a exercise, an additional money that you have to spend for the project. And many of us will tell each other, like, oh, NREV, they want you submit only lah, you submit and then later on don't fulfill, also can write until fulfill. Of course, cannot be no environment problem, got environment problem, but in the end you write there that it's not fully impacting the people, or not fully impacting the life, or not fully impacting the not very impacting, not high impact, or you can have solution such as monitoring and checking or testing or whatever to make sure that it doesn't go over the limit. And like, it has really defeat the purpose. Don't you think so? It's like it has become like something that can be adjusted. EIA is only to do for paperwork purpose, you see. So it's actually not, So EIA is actually in scope management. We are actually doing what we call the project environmental scan. Okay, exactly like our issue analysis. So it's about the environmental impact. It's about how other the concept doesn't differ so much from the picture that I showed you just now, from the issue analysis. It's just two ways of looking at it. One way is looking at issues. This is EIA is more on an environmental scan. Okay, so it's like a very systematic, orderly way of studying the environment of the project. Not ecological environment. It's everything. Okay, so it's really about this thing. We call it an environmental scan. So EIA is supposed to be environmental scan, not just ecological issues such as flora, fauna. If I build houses here, how many plants will be dead, how many trees will be cut down, and what sort of pollution will be facing. Yeah, it's part of it. That one is part of it, but it is not all to it. Okay, so yeah, so this whole pictures about EIA is about looking at different scanning the environment. Okay, scanning the environment, and then understanding the project environment in a very systematic, in a very orderly fashion, and then think about how the environment will affect your project, will affect your design. Does the design needs to have mitigation? Does your work on site later on needs to be managed so that the impact that creates on the project environment is actually minimalized, or is actually reduced, or actually in some cases it may be enhanced to bring more benefit to the project. So yeah, so I mean that is the purpose of EIA, and then not just ecological impact. Okay, and of course at different stages of the project life cycle, we will actually it's actually better to do this scan at the earliest stage. Like I said, you see that when you initiate your scope, before you initiate your scope, when you're initiating your scope, this is the time, it's a good time to actually do your project environmental scan. So instead of waiting until feasibility studies, the design bit, and then, or even doing the implementation bit, I think it's a bit too late already for us to think about all these things, rather than, in the first place, you give the environment a good scan first, think about how the project will be affected by the environment, and think about all the factors that may affect the project. I mean, this is especially so, I'm emphasizing this especially so because we are actually dealing with civil engineering. Civil itself, we do a lot of infrastructure project. Infrastructure project, it deals a lot with people's life, okay? Like roads, sewage systems, water pipeline systems, water distribution systems, raw water intake tank, power distribution, power supply distribution, digital network systems. All these things actually deals a lot with things that improve on people's life and people's day-to-day running of their life and businesses and their income and all that. So it's important for us to actually really put some effort into doing all these sort of studies first. And this is about coming up with the project started, which is what is the product that you are looking at? What is the product that will actually solve the problem? Okay, so are we going to build a bridge? Are we going to build 20 schools? Are we going to build roads systems? Are we going to build flyovers? Are we going to extend flyovers? And or are we going to build a huge, massive transportation network? So when we're dealing with infrastructure project, it's always dealing with a lot with money. And when we're dealing a lot with money, and this money is very limited money, because this sort of money is not from individual. It's not from I have money, I build. I don't have money, I don't build. If you are a private client, private individual, when I can't get funding, I can't borrow from the bank, I keep my project on the shelf for a while, I won't die, see? But when you are spending a lot of this government taxpayer money every year, the pool of money is actually limited. So when you want every aspect of a country and its people's life needs to be upgraded, managed, improved. So there are so many things that you want to build, Some people may say, I really need clean water supply in my area. Some people may say that I need a better road system. I really desperately need not to, send my produce, my fruits, my vegetables, through river anymore. I want roads, I want bridges, I want a good traffic network systems. This is all the need. So there's a lot of competition for a very limited funding. Okay, so when you have that, it's very important for you to really see which of these products that we are going to be investing onto is actually going to be having the biggest impact, especially dealing with infrastructure projects. It's not about building 100 houses or 90 houses. It's the difference is only 10 houses, or not even between 100 houses or 100 buildings or whatever. It's really about lifestyles. It's really about upgrading of lifestyles. It's about people. So when there's limited funding, we want to pick products, we want to pick ideas, we want to pick some the project that really has the biggest impact, towards the people that is serving. So I think that's why, in terms of civil, the more we do our issue analysis, the more we do our environmental impact assessments, the better it is for the selection of the project later on. Okay. All right. So, like I say, the notes here actually go through, all these steps of doing impact assessments. Like how to do it. And then why we need to do it, and then what kind of problems that we're going to be experiencing as well while we're doing the project EIA studies. Okay, so essentially, first part of the notes here, we end up with, so like I said, even if you're doing EIA or whether you are choosing to do issue analysis study, okay, this diagram is actually one of the basic diagrams that you have to learn. Okay, in exam questions later, we haven't set our exam questions yet, but typically, let's say if I were to set an exam question on scope management, it's about if I want to initiate a scope, what is the first thing that I should do, you see, and how should I do it, So in order to better initiate the scope, it's about studying the issues or using EIA studies, either one of these studies to actually learn about the project environment, and then to see whether, first and foremost, is there really a need for it? Is a yes or a no? Oh, okay, so then if it's a yes, what product am I building? And then after that, I move on to talk about my component and subcomponent. So how do you translate these diagram onto your scope initiation, scope the product that you are building? So you must be able to translate that. You understand? So in other words, let's say now I give you a problem. Okay, traffic jam is a problem. People travel time has increased from what time to what time, and then the traffic flow is what E flow and all that. And then from there, how there is many choice to solve this problem. So I need you to do an environmental scan like this using EIA studies or using issue analysis studies. So once you've done either issue analysis studies and environmental scan, what are the kind of solution that your environmental scan will suggest to you? So in that flow of from zero, nothing from a problem, doing this issue analysis or EIA, then contributes to the final scope initiation. We must be able to link these three things up very carefully. So even if you have to give an examples about local authority about economics or about the traffic studies all these things that you study, how does that contribute to initiating the products? How do you determine that, yes, in the end, to solve this problem, I need to widen the road, for example, or I need to create a flyover? Why is flyover the solution? So what makes you think that flyover is the solution? So it has to come from all these issue analysis, EIA studies. Do you understand? Okay, anything in the chat box? Okay, no messages in the chat box. Anything you want me to stop and discuss with you up until this point in time? So you understand about initiation at this point up until now, huh? So especially those of you who followed me for undergraduate studies, you realize that undergraduate studies, when we talk about project life cycle, we almost immediately go and talk about work breakdown structure, isn't it? Yeah, if you still remember, you haven't given back to me, yeah, I mean, like, that is what we have, we went through, like, because immediately you only have 14 weeks, we want to give you all the knowledge as fast as possible, and one of them is the work breakdown structure. So you see, before we actually do the work breakdown structure, there's many steps that we have to do. So I need you all to think about this, think about this. Like, how many times, like in your workplace, when you are initiating a new project, that you actually give a thought about studying your issues or your EIA. So would you be able to see any difference, especially like, let's say now that you have a project in hand and it's a water supply project, or it's a road project, or it's some form of infrastructure project, and if you have or if you know how to do EIA or issue analysis and management, would you have planned your project differently? That is something that I need you to be aware of, you see. So, like, maybe some of you are like, oh, you are, into Pambonioka or something like that, or along that line, like, would you have planned? I mean, like, let's say if you, I mean, of course, obviously, you probably are not in the planning group of people, huh? Let's say now that you've already gone through that, like some issue analysis knowledge, doing the environmental scan, do you think that you would have done it a little bit differently? Do you think you should have planned it a little bit differently? Or some of the routes may not be necessary, or you may want to add in certain other routes as well? Any of these sort of ideas, like on the hindsight, like, like now that you are in the project, facing certain issues and going through certain like, you've gone through the project in a few months already or a few years already, coming to closing to the end and all that, you've seen many problems, you've seen many issues, and then now that you've seen that, looking back, if you have done some sort of studies in the first place, in the better studies in the first place, would you have planned it a little bit differently? That is something that I want. Any one of you want to contribute to this? Like, any appreciation on that? Not at all. Or are you all falling asleep? One of the issues that I've seen a lot, especially from the Pan Borneo project, is a lot of diversion work and a lot of work that sort of pops up because of not studying the site very well in the first place. And I think one of the initial studies that would have been, would have made a lot of difference would be to, to properly map out some of the current route that is available in a better way to scan the environment in a better, in a more detailed manner. And I think that would have saved a lot of diversion work and a lot of work that sort of like pops up, variation that pops up because of is so unexpected. And that so unexpected is not because it's really unexpected, because it's already there. It's just that the initial study of things are not being well done. Maybe the traffic flow, the route studies, and also travel time, also the current facilities, the land issues that is occurring along the way as well. I think a lot of these sort of issues is actually there, it's always there, but we fail to study that. We fail to go through that issue analysis and doing the environmental scan properly first in the first place, and therefore we end up with a lot of like especially people under the supervision team actually end up having a lot of issues and problems trying to resolve these sort of issues on site. Am I right to say that?
Yeah, true. I think.
You are Gina, you are part of contracting, correct? I remember you say you're doing contract, right?
A bit lah, yeah.
Construction, correct?
I think it's because the fast track of most of the project lah.
Yeah. Actually,
can see it in the art also.
art
ART
also,
now.
And a lot of these problems, I think it becomes like emergency management, like when that problem happened, then we solve, correct or not? Like, we don't take so much time to try to, in the first place, taking time to try to anticipate all these problems. Some of you may call it risk management, but I think it's similar. Similar. I mean, how well is the risk analysis being done carefully in the first place? Especially with investments like art, which is so much money as well. I always wonder, like personally, I always wonder, like, how much effort has been put into project environmental scan and also issue analysis. With such a huge infrastructure project that covers so much of money and Sarawak in the first place. I mean, I remember when I was a young engineer, when I was when I was just finishing my studies, we can see that, even for like maybe a highway, a few 60 kilometers, 80 kilometers of highway, you know, it's actually not a huge project if you think about Ham Borneo and all that. And yet, the social studies, the environmental studies, the economic studies, the technical studies, and the legal, health, environment, all these things, right? There were a group of proper consultants studying this in Melbourne, actually. Yeah, I mean, this is at that time. That was about 20 over years ago. Yeah, and all this information was actually available in the public library. And now it's even easier. You just have to go online and click on it, and click on the link and read all these sort of different reports. And they are all done by independent consultants on the feasibilities or on the why this route is chosen, and if there's any issues such as pollution, noise pollution and all that, how much money or how much things are being put into building, designing on sound barrier, noise barrier, planting of trees and bushes and shrubs and all that. And I think that how the impact on the social, on the health, are all being studied. And it's only like a 60 kilometers freeway. It's not even like talking about the whole state here. And yet, for something like an art, I have not actually really ever see very transparent report. Maybe somebody else seen it before. I don't know. Your consultancy has been asked to study all this. I don't know. I mean, like, from my information is I never get to see this sort of things. You see, and when I never get to see this sort of, how do I know that these choices that is being made, and then cutting so much money and so much of effort and time, and the country or the state spending years on it is actually worth it, and is actually going to solve problems. And what was the problem in the first place? What is the actual idea, needs, impact? Where is that in the first place? I mean, we don't want a coffee shop talk sitting down there and say, your traffic jam, or like that, so susah. We need to have LRT, we need to have proper transport, and then we don't need to have one person telling us that, this is the best solution. Why is this the best solution? I mean, like, there's a lot of other mode of transportation around. Why do we need an LRT? And how do that solves what problem, you see? So I think what I'm trying to bring across here as an example is, what I'm trying to bring across here is basically, embark onto scope, a project. We need to be careful for the initial studies, and it's something that I do not think that we can avoid for a long time. I think people are getting more and more smarter. You are more, you have more access to information, and there's a lot of things on social media as well. So it's not like in the old days whereby you really can't get much information. So basically, whatever the politicians tells you or whatever the government agency tells you, then you will just accept it as it is, or what the newspaper says, and we follow, we just follow. You see, so I mean, it's not like that anymore, lah, really. So I think it is also an opportunity for a lot of different people as well, especially young people like yourself. Maybe to have a consultancy firm that really do become third party independent consultant to study all these sort of things are actually very important. It may be a good opportunity in the future. I mean, I've seen some studies, for example, on rural water supply, and many of these studies are actually not properly done as well. And it's not properly done as well. Putting it not properly done as well is actually very mild. In fact, I think it's just there for a show. Like they just get any consultant to do it, and then this consultant later on will actually do the design as well. So if I'm the consultant, why would I say that this project is no good? Or why do I want to say that this project is actually not for the purpose, not fulfilling the purpose, or not solving any problem? And yet, if that is the truth, we have many, many white elephants on all these Shawas project, Sakra project, all these things. That is actually not spending a lot of taxpayer money, and yet it is not fulfilling it's not solving any problem. You see, it's not solving the problem of clean water supply to the rural areas. So is it because in the first place, those sort of studies should have been carried out in a more proper manner, or in a manner that is a bit more systematic, more orderly, and then to study whether this is the right options or not for the project? Yeah. Like I said, many of the river could be a very clean river, and you don't need to have a full treatment systems, and yet we end up paying a few, one treatment plant pay about a few million just to do some treatment, just for the fact of doing some treatment. So if the initial environments studies EIA or the issue analysis has been done carefully, including technical factors has been studied carefully, then we shouldn't have that sort of issues, you see. I mean, we shouldn't end up having things that people don't use and it's not useful, and then just leave it aside and then leave it to rot in a way. Yeah, I think that is how there's a missing link here. And I think that missing link is to treat scope initiation with more respect in that sense. Yeah, and not just treat it like feasibility studies. Okay, and let's move on. I brought the point across when it comes to scope initiation. So after we have done that studies, we will end up the output from this particular scope initiation will be what we call a scope definition. Okay, and the first result from this stage of the study is a project charter. A project charter basically is a clear understanding of the final product that we are building. Okay, it's a clear understanding of the final product that will be developed, or that will be the final thing that we are constructing. So if it's, like I said, a bridge solves the problem, then this project charter will describe the bridge, you see. It will have some basic information about the bridge. Of course, this information will get more and more detailed as we have more and more information. But in the first place, during the conceptualization, we talk about, we're going to build a bridge. Then if it's a bridge, how many span, roughly how many kilometers that we are building, and we understood fully why we are building. I think last week I mentioned to you all that I know I just came back from Hong Kong and Macau and that part of the world. And I mean the two most impressive reach that I obviously for any engineers would be the Hong Kong Chiang Mai Bridge and also the Hong Kong Zhuhai and Macau Bridge. And those bridges are like, state of the art, like any engineers who witness this sort of construction or see this sort of construction, you'll be going like, wow, it's so beautiful. I mean, you get this kick in you suddenly, like, and I wonder, it's like, why these people spend so much money, why the government spends so much money building all these things, so that the initiation bit must be very clear, when you want to span bridge across three different countries, in a way countries, three different areas, Hong Kong and Macau is basically China now, huh? Then the Chiang Mai Bridge is to connect the airport from the island side, because the airport has been shifted to the island side to better serve the flights and the public and all that. It is infrastructure project, so they need to link the island side with the mainland side, the mainland Hong Kong side. So that forms the Chiang Mai Bridge, and Chiang Mai Bridge is a cable stayed bridge. It's so huge, and the cable is so nice when you look at it. It's so elegant, So what makes them decide this is the type of method? Is it the spanning? Is it because the span that it has to go through? Is it because of the height, the river height, or the sea height, or whatever you call it? Yeah. So the flow of the traffic, the water traffic around the area. So there must be a good reason why this sort of method is chosen, this sort of span is chosen, this sort of construction techniques or design method, and then and this sort of sizes, and and how many lanes, and how long it should serve the public and all that. There must be a full description of that. And project charter is the very initial description of the product. Okay? So when you come up with the scope, the project charter is the first thing. So after you've done your issue analysis, your EIA study, then we do our project charter. So the project charter is the output. So it will describe the item, the product itself. What is the product itself? What is the constraint? What are the goals? What is the purpose? What is the problem that is supposed to solve? And what is maybe the budget and the time that we'll be using to do this, And then we slowly build up our project, the definition of the scope. Okay. So basically, project charter will provide a project team, the direction to carry out more investigation, collect more information, formulate more strategies or better strategies to do the work. Okay. I mean, like, to deliver the final product. So in the end, what is the product that we are building? Okay? So the project charter will specify the product, the bridge, or the new project, the new product, and the new schools. Then from there, at this stage here, normally we should also do some form of testing as well. This is the part that I have here at the back. Project screening. Okay. Normally, from project charter, we should at this stage be able to do some project screening and selection. This I will explain a little bit more later on in the LU3 pre-recorded lecture. All right. So, but some project, you don't need to have this anymore because it is a very need-based kind of project or a very the demand is very clear. So when we talk about project screening, you are talking about a few stages in the project screening, and of course the major stage is the project. The major stage is the engineering economics and the feasibility studies and all that. But the initial screening is about whether yes or no, because when we say we need to build a bridge or we need to extend, we need to build a flyover to resolve these issues, you see, if we go to do that, its initial screening will be to give it a yes or a no first. It may still be a no because the most basic screening here could be there are other projects that needs the money, or there are other or this project can still wait for another 2 or 3 years. So we pass it aside first. So usually this project screening is about whether overview of whether the most important question is you have the money or not, huh? And of course the priority and the urgency towards this project will come into play first. So we say, okay, we've got the initiation, we know the project charter, so we will put the project charter through project screening. Is also to see whether the same amount of money, if I'm going to use it to build water supply systems, would I be able to serve more people? Or that is actually more urgent. There is more priority over on that side, and therefore we will just hold it first for the project screening. So this bit here, we will make sure that we want to see whether what kind of screening model that we have. It's just like whether you want to develop this piece of land or not. So if we say that yes, we're going to the project charter is saying that we need to develop this piece of land, we can go for 100 houses. So initial screening here is maybe you have other lands or you have other priority or other things in the company's portfolio that may need your attention first. For example, maybe building your own landmark office, or maybe it has to be going to maybe some funds has to be put towards listing your company, or some project that does not contribute to listing the company, like there may be different organization direction and goals that we are looking at here. So the screening model itself basically depends on the project. Like I said, if it's an infrastructure project, then it may be like the impacts of it or the benefit that it will bring to people, or the prioritization is reshuffled. And then, or if it's a private organization, it could be due to the market, it could be due to the company's organization portfolio, or the current needs, or the current funding, or the current situation of the company that will determine whether it's a yes or no. So the answer is, the question here is yes or no. Are we going to proceed with this or not? This is the first robustness test, or what we call the first screening model that we will go through for the project. Okay. So once the project has gone through a yes, for example, and the answer is a yes, so we are going to go into the next stage, which is called scope planning. Okay. And in scope planning, essentially what we are going to do is to specify the components of the product already. The project charter is about the project. Then when you plan the scope, now you are breaking down. You're breaking down the project, the product into major scope and the sub-component. The major components and sub-components. Okay, so you will need to think about, this is a bridge, you need to think about the location, you need to think about the lanes, you need to think about the styles of the bridge, you need to think about the the different options, okay, the different options, or different possibilities, because the different possibilities will made up the components of the project. Because a bridge can have many choices, it can be box girder, can be cable stay, it can be suspension. There's just many options available. So with different options, you will create different components. And with different components, you have different subcomponents as well. So you are in a way defining the product now, going into the stage of product definition, okay, or project definition. Right. So the most common technique that we will use is project breakdown or product breakdown. So this is to describe the components of the product. And when we are doing this thing on the components of the product together with our option studies, this is the part that we will bring in things like feasibility studies, financial viability studies, and we will also bring in things like option studies and value engineering and also LCC. This would be the best stage to bring all these things together when we're planning the scope of the project. Okay. I think this one here, what we're going to do is you are basically going to come up with the scope statement now. The output of this part here is to come up with the scope statement, and it will describe the project or the service or the whatever the final product that you are building, and then the conditions, the requirement, what are the project goals, what are the constraints, what are the acceptance criteria. So you really need to build up. It's like developing the ideas into various scope, the various components. And each of these components the first and foremost is option. Like style of the bridge can be options. The lanes of the bridge can be options. You see, the location of the bridge can be an option. The selection of the location is an option. So as we are developing the different components of the product, we bring in value engineering. Because as you are developing the different components, you are thinking about different options. And when you think about different options, can the same option serves? Can this option also serve the same purpose, but it's a lot cheaper? Can this option be a higher performance, saving materials, and yet it looks a lot better? See? And it's a lot cheaper. Or it's performing a lot higher in terms of performance. By spending this amount of money, we are going to have this, we're going to use this particular option, and this option will have it will bring up the performance of the bridge or bring up the performance of the flood mitigation by 30%, for example. So at the same time as doing your option studies, you do your VE at the same time. So this is the right moment, basically, to do your value engineering studies, because as you are studying the different components, you're going to be studying the various options to the component. And this goes back down to the project screening. So project screening is about yes or no, the project is going to go ahead or not. And then after that, you flow it into option studies. Yeah. And then of course, under option studies, you create option A, option B, option C for different components, and then you study it. And then if you pick certain option, you also put it through value engineering studies. And then you also put it into economic studies, whether it will bring more benefit, it will bring more dollars and cents benefit, or more non-dollars and cents benefit. So these are all under engineering economics. Yeah. So I think this part here, yeah, so coming up with the project deliverables, the project objective constraint, these are to describe whatever that we have spoken just now. So yeah, and so under project screening, yeah, what we do is from the project screening, initial screening of whether the project is possibilities, then we will look into a few areas like economics. Okay, so economics is different. Economics feasibilities and financial viability is very different. Economics feasibilities is more about whether the cost is the cost is a lot lower than the benefit. And economic feasibilities can be in dollars and cents, it can also be in non-dollars and cents. Whereas financial viability studies is more on whether the project will make money or not. Will it bring more income or not? Will it be profitable or not? And the other option is, do you have the money or not? So under financial viability, you need to answer whether, number one, where is the sources of money? Where is the sources of funding? And do you have the funding? And then whether it's going to make is it a financial sound decision? So financial sound option. So financial viability is about money. It's about finance. It's about cash flow. It's about being able to pay for the project and being able to earn dollars and cents from the project. Like get profit. The higher the profit, the better. So of course, this will be applicable more onto private projects. Whereby economic feasibilities, we are talking about whether overall the savings that you will get, because of the time savings, because of the vehicle maintenance will drop, breakdown will reduce, it's safer. These are benefits, and cost is about construction costs, it's about breakdown costs, it's about operation costs. So economic feasibilities is about whether the benefit will actually overcome the cost. So this is the questions that your options will have to answer. You understand? Okay. So from project charter, we decided what project, what product. Then we want to decide on component. And under each component, we want to make sure that everything is financially viable, economically feasible, and technically doable. And technical doable, we also associate that with value engineering and technical studies as well. Okay. And economic feasibilities or feasibility studies, then of course we are looking into more of economic feasibility studies. And then of course financial one. Financial studies is not under feasibility studies, but it's more on the study by itself. You're looking at the company's cash flow, profit and loss, balance sheet, accounts, your CFO will be more into this sort of financial viable kind of questions, okay? But you have to know, okay, because your project may die because you don't have the money, or your project may just not go on because financially it's not going to make money, you see? So again, this all have an impact onto the components of the project. And different components later on will be developed into different subcomponents. And then from different subcomponents, we are going to work out on the scope of works. Okay, and that is the work breakdown structure. So from product breakdown, this bit here we're using product breakdown, option studies, economic studies, not economic, feasibility studies, financial studies, option studies. These are the things that we are looking at this stage on project components, the planning, the product components planning. So then from there, we will move on to scope scope planning already, and then work breakdown structure. And then from work breakdown structure, you are looking at what kind of exercises, work, and all that will go into the project, and then that will bring into your time management, cost management, and quality management, risk management, and all that. Okay, so I think this is where I will stop, because the rest of this I've already prepared in pre-recorded lecture, and I think we already talked quite a lot today to see, I don't want it to be a big over jam with information as well. So I hope you can see the flow. This flow is very important. I am not sure whether I want to set the floor of these things, as one of your bonus questions, or just the simple work breakdown as your bonus questions. We will see. I will take a look and then to see whether you fully understand what we're trying to get here, huh? So you guys can get the flow of how we develop from zero, nothing now, all the way down to the different components, studying the options of the different components, technically, economically, financially, and doing option studies, feasibility studies. These are the studies that we have to complete. Then we determine the whole product, including the product components and subcomponents. Then, baru finally, work breakdown structure. Any questions so far?
Doctor, I have a question to ask.
Sebastian.
Yeah, I'm Sebastian. You're doing the initiation, scope initiation, right? So how do we examine ourselves where our study is sufficient for us to go to the next stage? Is there any criteria or guideline to look into?
So you're saying that you're worried that if you actually do the study, whether you are underdoing it or overdoing it, is it?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think the guideline is basically you need to fulfill the 3 circles, you see. So the first circle is a direct influence, or the project direct influence, you see. Then the second circle is the one that is maybe more on the controllable, meaning that it will affect the project, such as local authority, and local factors, whether whether it may not be fully under your control. Then the third circle, especially, is going to be something that you need to appreciate, meaning that it could be a very global issue, it could be a very state kind of issues, and as long as you base it on this principle, you base it on this principle, and I think to create those identification, the first thing is you need to identify it first. So obviously, there is no strict or fast rule saying that, oh, you must identify at least 5 in each category or 10 in each category to be considered as reasonable. So I think as long as you have a project team, or whether 1 or 2 engineers together, I mean like 2 or 3 engineers together, especially at the planning stage, whereby if let's say you're part of the planning stage, so I think I said you sit down and then you can map out this thing according to that 3 circles, whether you miss some detail or not, or whether you overdo it. There won't be such thing as overdo it, because there will be issue filtration later. So once you have issue filtration, it means that those not so important one, you will not look at it anymore at later stage. So you will try to actually pump in as much as you can think of into the diagram. Okay, and then after that, when you're doing the study, is the part that you will realize that, hey, did I miss out on something? Or this thing may lead to something else. Oh, I didn't think about that in the first place, so we add it in. And obviously, you probably will not be able to get it first shot perfectly correct. Okay. Normally what they will do with experienced consultant or people who are third-party independent consultants, they obviously have already got sort of like a checklist already lah, in that sense to move through whatever they need to cover, then standard things that they need to cover, and they put it in. And then of course some other things are project related, very, very project related, or the nature of the project, characteristics of the project related sort of information they can add it in as well. And then they started to build up a portfolio in that sense of all these issues. So I think the first thing is to do it first. It's just like risk management as well. Risk management, there is no such thing as if you do 10 risks per item, then you are doing enough. You know, some people may say, I'll do 5, you know, and then I do 3, or everything I do 3 first. Then we'll see how we go from there. So I think it's always to have something to build up first, to do it first, and then we build it up from there. And obviously, if the project is bigger, you will realize that, or you know, like your project is spanning a bigger areas, maybe like something like Pan Borneo, you definitely have many sections, and then you may be dealing with different local authority as well. So those sort of impact may be a lot higher compared to if you're just doing like a road in Ting, for example. So whatever that you put down there will generally be a lot more in that sense. Yeah. I hope that kind of answer you. Like I said, the thing is to do something first. You know, you base it on that format, you do it first, and then we add on as we go along. There wouldn't be anything that is too much, because what happens is under issue filtration, you will filter out those things that are not important anyway. But the more concern is you're not doing enough. You're missing out on things that should be thought about, but then we did not think about. Yeah. So don't worry about overdoing it, okay? Because you will not be overdoing it. All you need to do is don't underdo it, meaning that don't do it for the sake of because I need to do it. Put down 333 like that, and then you know, see how we go and then you never use it, you see. So that one is defeating the purpose. So as long as you do it and then you check through all the issues and then relate those issues to your design or to your management later or to your idea later, then it should be all right, you know, like at least you've got something to start off with. And then for the next project, you base it on the old project and then you build it on again. Or as you move into the second stage, you may say, hey, I miss out on certain, you know, like I miss out on certain things, I want to add it in now, you know. So also on past experience that you have for different projects, that will also help a lot with issues. Yeah. Like I said, same things with risk management. This time you probably will not be able to get it perfect. You know, so that's why there's always a stage on monitoring and going back to check again and improve on it. There will be a continuous improvement towards this sort of reports, definitely. Yeah, but the techniques is there, based on those sort of techniques.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. It's just that sometimes we have time constraint, right? So we tend to miss out things, lah. You know.
Yeah. The best thing is that is why when we do, I think it's important also when you do this report, don't wait until the post-mortem meeting to actually check whether you have issues or not. So it's as you go along, when any issues that crop up, you go along, you should input that into the circles immediately to do the study, like for that particular issue. Then you have a very systematic way of doing it already. A lot of us, the main problem is we do it in the first place and we're not sure whether it's enough or not. And then we never look at it again until post-mortem meeting. And then in between is empty. You see, like nothing going, like you're not sure what is going on as well. And just leave it as it is. That really defeats the purpose, you see. So means that you do it also no use. Don't do it, you feel bad. Do it, not much use, you see. So I think that report is whereby, yes, in the first place, you have time limitation. You start off first, you put in something first, and then you can think about some of the major issues that you will face later. You know, like some of these major issues, you can really already see in the first place. Like, for example, opposition from residents around the area, NGOs, you know, and you may also have issues like local government the area local government being not cooperative as well, in doing the work and all that, and then some of the local requirements, and then course local people, local plantation and all that. So this issue you can see already. You see, so why not we put it down? So why not we try to resolve those issues first before your project even gets started? See, and I think many, like what Gina was saying just now, some of us actually can see it, but our attitude is always, oh, it hasn't happened yet, don't worry about it, kind of thing. Then when it happens, then we go and solve the problem, and that is whereby the project will drag on because of this, you see. Like, time will be wasted, and going for negotiation and like trying to get permission from the local government, permits and all this. So in the first place, actually, like diversion work and all that, you can see the problem already. Why not apply for diversion before the project even started? If you have done your issue analysis, it will force you to do this sort of things first, see. So if you don't do it, then you have to wait until when there's really an issue, then you go and ask for a permit, and then if permit comes 3 months later, then who are you to blame anybody, you see? Like way leaves and all these things, it takes time. So in the first place, issue analysis should have already told you that there is going to be issues like this coming up for your project. So time cost quality sometimes is not time cost quality problem. It's the initial planning that is not well done. Yeah, but like I said, you add it on, make it a habit to add it on. So let's say if there is issue that is not, you haven't expected it in the first place, but it did crop up later on, then you take the same issue and you put it into your chart, and then you study through that particular issue and see if other issue will be affected by it. And then that will help you to build up your issues and to solve the problem of not enough time in the first place, you see. Right. Anything else? Yeah, I forgot to inform you guys is the e-league, right? It's very funny. I realized this on Friday I want to post some notes on e-leagues for you all. Then I realized that the COM did not actually open the account properly. So I emailed them again because I think under my account they put the name 6083, and I saw a lot of you registered on it already, but they didn't put my name on it, and then they actually they actually mistaken it for research methodology. So I'm not sure what is happening now, but I haven't gone back to it yet. But I've already informed CAM, which is the center to check on all this e-league thing, and they have already replied me and said, "Telah dikemas-kinikan." Okay, so I need you all to go back to your e-league, especially for 6083, to make sure that you are registered on the right 6083. Okay, that 6083 must have my name and Dr. Lee's name on it. If there is other lecturer's name on that, then don't join that group. That one is a wrong one. If they put 6083 and they put Dr. Su, they put, Dr. Charles and all that, that is wrong already. Yeah. So do go back and take another look. I will also take another look on Monday, tomorrow, to see that whether the issue has been resolved already. Okay. So I'll be posting up the notes later. I'll be posting up the notes on that tomorrow . And yeah, once I post it up, normally my style is I will also tell the class, you see. Jonathan, you didn't check in with? Can you scan? Or I may need to go out again and scan back again. Hold on, ah. All scanned already, Jonathan? Cannot scan, is it?
Not yet, doctor. I did not manage to scan this now.
Can you scan now?
The screen isn't showing the QR code.
Oh, okay. Now that's yeah. I should share the screen. Very smart. Showing now? Okay. 14.
Oh, done, doctor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from anyone else? I'm very happy to do discussion with you all, you know. It's a very good question from Sebastian just now. How much is enough? That is always a good question because it's very difficult to define. Yeah, definitely. Any one of you are into more on the planning side of things as well? Like, do you use this sort of skills at your workplace? So quiet. Must be Sunday afternoon. You all must be very, 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 very dull already. Is it? Like want to go home already. Oh, everybody's like, it's quiet, you know. Right lah. I think I'll let you guys go lah. Aiyo. Yeah. It's also quite too much information later also cannot muscle also, huh? Yeah.